everybody. We're Cash One Pond. We're ready, we got your back, and we're unbeating all the rest of them. Here we go, you ready? Well, you want money, we got money. You need money, we got money. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Money to lend, money to spend. We can put money in your hands. We're Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. You don't have to worry. Sometimes when you're a little broke and you just need something to get over the hill, we're there with the truck. We got your back. We're Cash One Pond. Come down and see us. Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One. Cash One Pond.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Colter, Nuanez, Brooks, Nuanez, Andrew Houghton, SkylineSportsMT.com. Happy anniversary to us. Our 10th year anniversary celebration continues. This isn't as much of a quote-unquote countdown. We've given you the countdown of the top 10 women's basketball teams over the last 10 years that we've covered at Skyline Sports. We also gave you a countdown of the top 10 women's basketball players from the Big Sky Conference that we've covered over the last decade. This is going to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more loose, and a little bit more rapid fire. We're calling this our Big Sky All-Stars. So this is just players that are memorable, good, all of the above. People that we either consider for our top 10 or that we won't ever forget no matter what their prowess as a player was. And we can't say thanks enough to our great sponsors for helping bring this to you. Cash One Pond, the premier pawn shop in western Montana. You can shop online anytime, CashOnePond.com. Also, Up Top Clothing. As we sit here in the ESPN MT studio, there is a Colt Anderson Dream Big Camp promo running on SWX Montana Television, which is cool. Colt, of course, a Butte, Montana product who, with his brother Luke, helped spearhead, found, and has sustained now for a decade and a half plus the Up Top Clothing empire, as it were. Legendary athletes, legendary conversations brought to you by a legendary brand. Visit teamuptop.com. And also big shout out to our good friends at Town Pump as well. They keep us fueled up all football and basketball seasons long. They'll be sending us to Spokane, Washington here in a couple weeks for the Big Sky Conference kickoff. Media days. Andrew is going to be sort of spearheading and moderating this. So Andrew, just tell people the sort of the broad format here.
Yeah, so the reason we're doing this is because, we gave you our top 10 women's basketball players of the era. We talked probably about another 8 to 10 players in terms of the honorable mention of that list. We covered a lot of ground. But here's the thing. We've been watching this league for 10 years here at Skyline Sports. There's hundreds of players that we have watched. Here we're going to give some more of them their shine because these are the players who left a mark for us, were memorable, because of a game, a moment, because of their style, their swagger, how they played on the court, just who they were, because we can never give you enough content. So what we're going to do here...
The other one thing I want to add to that is just that even though the Big Sky Conference is I would say, upper tier low major or low level mid major in men's basketball, it's still largely a stratified model across Division I men's basketball. Most teams look the same. There's varying levels, but very rarely, even in the Big Sky in men's basketball, do you get these unorthodox players. There's been a few sort of unorthodox players, but mostly they're all just a bunch of really, really athletically gifted guys. A lot of times the thing that's holding them back from being high major players is skill, exposure, or both. In the Big Sky Women's League, even though the Big Sky Women's League is probably tiered higher, it's a true, real mid-major league, and I would say one of the better mid-major conferences out of the 32 conferences in Division I basketball. There has been a variety of completely and utterly unorthodox players, so we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about those young ladies as well. We'll get into the details of that a little bit later on.
So this is just the list with our own spin on it, the Skyline Sports Big Sky All-Stars. What we're going to do, we're going to leave it mostly up to the brothers Nuanez. We're going to go back and forth, draft teams, give us your reasonings behind each of these players, why they make this all-star list for you. We didn't flip a coin or anything, but we're just going to go with that. And then at the end here, we'll also do a little bit of a lightning round just to give out a few more superlatives, the best athletes, the best shooters, the best quotes. We'll talk a little bit about the coaches as well, so sort of a grab bag here of anniversary content. We didn't flip a coin. but I thought we were just going to go in alphabetical order
That's
and
fine.
start with Brooks.
One question. So first of all, we'll get 10 players each, and then we'll go through some of the others that we may be considered or that are quote unquote left on the board. But Brooks, I have one stipulation question for you, because I made a Google Doc of a whole bunch of names. You added a whole bunch of more names to it. There's a couple though that you added that are current Big Sky Conference players. So, for example, Sophie Glancy is on here from Northern Arizona. Is this eligible for our Big Sky All-Stars?
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean,
Okay,
Sophie
great.
Glancy, rim to rim. Let's go, man.
Yeah, and here's
of course she's eligible.
here's the thing. We could probably do a whole other podcast of like Big Sky rising stars, like who could be breaking into like the top 10 of the next decade. Sophie Glancy is absolutely leading that pack, right? I mean, she was a first-team All-League selection this last year as a sophomore. She's already one of the, 3 or 4 best, maybe even 2 or 3 best players Northern Arizona's had during the SKYLINE Sports era. So
the reason I put her on there is because of the transfer era. I think that the time is never better than now, because I don't think Sophie Glancy's going anywhere, but you never know when you might not ever see a player again.
Totally. All right. So Brooks starts with B. That's before C. So
this is also my pride and joy and my passion is women's basketball from 2014 to 2024.
Here we are.
I think I've reiterated it, folks, but I can't tell you how much I enjoy women's basketball live. And I'm not just messing. This is 0% a joke. I think it is such a high-level game. Number one, and the primary reason is due to spacing. I think that the spacing is just, it makes the beautiful game, which we all know basketball to be, an even more functional and beautiful game.
No doubt.
The men's game at the mid-major level or the low-major level gets so jammed up by a bunch of 6'9" guys. If everyone puts their hands out, there's nowhere to even go.
And in the highest level of Division I women's basketball, there is a tremendous amount of very unusual size. They do a good job spacing still, better than the men, certainly. But that's the thing that makes Big Sky Conference women's basketball so beautiful. Because so many of these players, like we just did our top 10 players, how many of those gals are just completely normal-sized young ladies, right?
That's the other point, is that when you're sitting courtside watching this, whether you're a fan, a spectator, someone in the media, you feel a connection to some level of normalcy.
Right.
You feel like these are people that you can not only relate to, but you could attain to be someday as a little kid watching this. You ain't going to be a 6'9" dude flying down the baseline dunking on people's heads.
It's true.
You're not going to be that.
It's true. But somebody like Savannah Smith, for example, who came in at number 2 in our top 10 countdown.
She's 5'6".
She's a normal-sized, she is just an average-sized person. Like I think the average woman in America is 5'6". She is 5'6". That is what she is. So
the number one pick, it's not close for me. My favorite player that I wanted to argue for the top 10 is Sacramento State guard Moran Johnson.
Oh, he goes with his favorite.
My absolute favorite.
Moran Johnson would be probably a Big Sky Conference record holder when it comes to three-pointers made in a career if it wasn't for the Splash Sisters.
She's got 299 of them.
Yeah, she's got a lot of them, and she had a very prolific career. I was going through this because we were talking about Delaney Hodgins, who also made our top 10, and she shattered the individual single-game scoring record in the league when she scored 46 points. The previous record I misquoted on the last podcast was I said 42. It was actually 41, and I thought it was just Shannon Kate of Montana, Katie Bussey of Montana State that had 41. There was actually 5 individuals that had 41 points in a single game, including Moran Johnson. So she was a single game record holder in the Big Sky for a little while as well.
And we'll lean a little heavy on these top picks, and then we'll get a little bit quicker as we move down. But I just want to say that Moran Johnson is as cold of a killer as I've ever watched play basketball. Men, women, doesn't matter. Adults, kids, doesn't touch it, man. She's top 3 in every single fundamental stat at Sacramento State in program history. As a senior, she averaged 17, 6.5, 5.5, and 3. I mean, she averaged like 3 steals a game for her entire career. An absolute defensive mastermind, such a good shooter, could get to the cup. I mean, I love everything about Moran Johnson.
And the style that Sac State played at that moment, Andrew was probably going to add that exact thing.
The avatar of those Sac State teams.
Exactly.
Perfect fit.
Here's the brief Bunky Harkle Road formula. Bunky Harkle Road was the head coach there at Sac State. He enacted this completely haphazard, unorthodox formula. It worked really well for a while, and then the recruiting fell off, and then they started getting steamrolled. But the broad goals were shoot 100 field goals in a game, shoot 53 pointers in a game, secure 40% of the offensive rebounds, and force 30 turnovers. That ended up resulting in, if you go to the single game records for points scored and points allowed for all the teams, it's Sac State versus, and they're either winning or losing all those games. Brooks remembers the game that we covered in Bozeman when they played the Jasmine Hamas Peyton Ferris Cats, and it was 118 to 114. Both teams shot like 65%.
I had a good time.
Because basically Sac State would give you the layup if they didn't get the steal. If they get the steal, they're shooting the three, they're getting the offensive rebound. It was a crazy style to watch. Marianne Johnson was the one that made it go all around. All right, I'm so stuck on several different players for my first pick, but I am just going to go with someone who I think could be the centerpiece on any team. She certainly got consideration in our top 10. She was like the first cut for just being in an honorable mention, but I'm a little bit biased towards her because, first of all, she's from Montana. Second of all, I think she did an unbelievable job representing for something bigger than herself, both the Crow Nation where she comes from, as well as for an initiative that was much bigger than her. She became the face of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women initiative and sort of PR campaign at Montana State. And oh, by the way, she was a two-time All-Big Sky player and the heart and soul of a Big Sky Conference championship team that went to the NCAA tournament. I'm taking Cola Bad Bear. I don't really know how much else to say besides that I've just taken her first, not because I think she's the best player on the board, although I do think she's
That's
one of the
not what this is.
But she's one of the better players on the board, but I think you can build a team around her, or I think she could be the central point of a team without having to be the central focus of a team across the board. And so much of that has to do with who she is as a person, as well as what she did as a player. All right, you're next.
Man, Cole Bad Bear, just to add my 2 cents, we're talking about memorable players, extremely memorable.
Well, so memorable.
Obviously a great name, a great player, great athlete, and one of those players we talk about.
Yes.
Marianne Johnson, we talk about players that play with joy. We talked about that a lot in the top 10. Marianne Johnson's not that player.
No.
Cole Bad Bear is.
She is.
In a very cool way.
There's also just the distinct element of being the latest great Native American player. There'd been so many great women Native American players all through the 90s and the mid 2000s. There hadn't been a really great standout one because Shanae Gillum at Montana got hurt, which was such a bummer. There hadn't been one in about 10 years. So that was sort of the resurrection of that element of things too, which I think when you're representing for something so much bigger, when you have 7 Indian reservations in Montana, it's part of a bigger deal. All right, next.
I am also going to go with another Montana State player, and I actually might have to fit a 2 in at some point. But the first one I'm going to go with is a player endlessly memorable to me for a variety of reasons. But in the women's game, which it happens in men's as well, but in the women's game, it's unique. So many players play as freshmen.
Yes.
So you get to see a career that's not just like a bench player and then you played a kind of a starting role and then you had a big senior year.
Yes.
There's players that come and just start all 4 years.
And John Newley and Tricia Binford, both Idaho head coach and Montana State head coach, they love doing that because they know it can accelerate your development so much.
This isn't the best player in this position or at this program or even on her team maybe at any time, but a player that I find extremely memorable for hitting such big shots, being so key at the free throw line, and throwing such nasty one-handed passes. I believe she led the league at assists one year, but that's Montana State guard Hannah Cottle.
Really good one. Hannah Cottle had so many different influences within her game. First of all, she had the unenviable task of coming right directly behind Lindsey Stockton, and everybody wanted her to be Lindsey Stockton.
She's from the same area, right?
She's from Gonzaga Prep.
Right.
She played on the same club team that John Stockton, Lindsey's dad, had coached.
Right.
Like the tie that binds that helped Montana State get Hannah Cottle was that connection. But then she steps into Stockton's shoes, and it's like, okay, be Lindsey Stockton. Well, that's easier said than done. Lindsey Stockton was really good.
Very good.
Hannah Cottle became better than Lindsey Stockton by the time her career was all said and done. She was a pure shooter, but she had a horrific stretch during her career where she couldn't make a shot.
Absolutely.
That's where Tricia Binford's so good. Keep shooting.
Yep.
Keep shooting. And then by the time she was a junior and senior, she was one of the knockdown players in the entire conference, and she had a phenomenal junior and senior year. We talked about Peyton Ferris being our number 1 player in the top 10. Hannah Cottle got a lot of dimes to Peyton Ferris, but Peyton Ferris also got a lot of buckets because of Hannah Cottle.
And also, I think probably an underrated competitor. I think that she really cared about the game, and you could see it. She wore her emotions on her sleeves at times. I think in a positive way. I think that she was someone that you could look to that said, not only am I going to get after this, but if I get hot, I'm gonna absolutely destroy you. And she was that kind of player. She could avalanche teams.
SkylineSportsMT.com 10th anniversary. Brought to you in part by Team Up Top, reminding you to take a step back and enjoy the moment. Visit teamuptop.com. use the promo code SKYLINE15 to get a additional discount on any and all of your online orders. All right, my second pick. It's actually crazy how good you have to be to overshadow your older sister, but Haley Hodgins is my pick. And if Delaney Hodgins hadn't come along, I think Haley Hodgins would widely be remembered as the greatest player in Eastern Washington history, other than Jamie Loetta, who just won Big Sky Conference MVP and Defensive Player of the Year this last year. Haley Hodgins was, I believe, the first 2,000-point scorer in the Big Sky Conference since Shannon Cate. We've seen, I think, 5 or 6 girls score over 2,000 points since then, including Delaney Hodgins, Michaela Ferenz, Savannah Smith. There's been a lot that have gone over 2,000 in the modern era, in the Skyline Sports era. But Haley Hodgins was lights out. She was the best player on Eastern Washington's first ever Big Sky Conference championship team. I believe that was in 2010 or 2011. And she was a little bit overshadowed because her sister was so great. But that was sort of the launching point. Wendy Schuler was just sort of puttering along, and then Eastern never became a dominant program in the Big Sky, but they were very competitive during that 5-year span, and so much of it was because of the Hodgins last name. But I'm taking Haley Hodgins. It's funny because Delaney's such a diverse scorer who can score in so many different ways. Haley Hodgins is actually a way better shooter.
Much better shooter.
She just didn't have this, Delaney Hodgins was, 5'11" and can post you up and can, shoot over both shoulders and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But in terms of a catch and shoot and a pick and pop player, Haley Hodgins is one of the better shooters that we've covered in the Big Sky Conference.
And she can get downhill on you. She's a facilitator. I mean, she's more of a true point guard and a player that if you have her on her team, you got a chance to win every game that you tip off.
No doubt.
Great player. My third pick is one of my favorite players of all time. I think she's widely would be considered a player that went under the radar for the way that her career unfolded, partly because of the stars that she played with at the University of Idaho. But man, oh man, do I love.
Man, you're stealing her from me.
Oh, no, I wrote in the Google Doc, don't touch her, because she's mine. Idaho forward Geraldine McCorkle.
Jerry McCorkle, I was looking this up last night, and I knew McCorkle was a great player, certainly. Geraldine McCorkle is 26th in Big Sky Conference history in scoring. She would be 4th at the University of Montana all time.
Let's go, Jerry.
In points scored. She would be 3rd or 4th at Montana State as well. Geraldine McCorkle scored more points in her career than Jasmine Hamas did. That's crazy, especially considering she played with 2 of the top 10 scorers in the history of the league in Michaela Ferenz and Taylor Pierce. The point of the story is John Dooley's Idaho teams were scoring a bunch of buckets during that era. But McCorkle, you talk about unorthodox. I mean, she is one of the most unorthodox players ever, but gosh dang it, she can get a bucket.
6-foot Australian, that is an absolute bucket. And
scoop shots, underhand.
You never know it. When you see her, you're like, who's this girl? Is this real? She just keeps filling it up. She goes 15, 18. Why did she score 20? Why was she 4th in the league in rebounding? Why is she 2nd team all league? Who's Geraldine McCorkle in Idaho? An absolute bucket getter, someone that I consider endlessly memorable, and there's people who are probably listening that know the league, that watch Montana State or have seen Idaho play and watch the Splash Sisters, and you don't remember Geraldine McCorkle, which that's why we're doing this, is a player just like her.
Yeah, and also one that, like you mentioned, she's from Melbourne, right? Like,
yes, big
story in the league in the last 10 years has been not even the Australians, but just the international players in general. But there are so many
of them.
Memorable Australian players as well.
I'll tweet some of this stuff out, but if you want to, if you're having fun or you want to just go down the rabbit hole, just go on SkylineSportsMT.com and just type in international. Because I wrote a story about this phenomenon when it was sort of first getting going with the Eastern Washington teams with Jim Hayford recruiting all those Aussies. At that time, Wayne Tinkle and Kerry Rupp at Montana was recruiting a bunch of Australian guys as well. And then that sort of spread. And then all of a sudden, Weber is recruiting all these international guys. Well, then that also has been a huge storyline in the women's league. You mentioned the Australian connection, but then, Idaho State has had young ladies from everywhere between Croatia and Australia to Spain. Idaho State has had this complete mixing pot. So if you just type in international, you'll get Andrew's story on the Idaho State team and sort of their international flavor. I've written at least 2 trend type stories on it, and it'll explain a little bit more in depth. But it's a good point.
And it's only getting more. You're seeing Montana do that now, right? Like Matt Koenig, Canadian.
For sure. The Canadian pipeline is very real. I mean, Mara Dykstra at Montana State.
I was going to mention the Montana State girls.
Natalie Picton at Montana State.
Go ahead and go watch the men's international team from Canada play in the Olympics this year.
Oh, it's a nasty
Man,
team.
the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, is a real deal basketball factory.
I mean, fun fact, for about 25 years, Seattle had the distinct honor of being the metropolitan area that had produced the most active NBA players. Now that has been replaced by Toronto. Toronto has that area has more active NBA players than anybody else in the entire world, which is a pretty impressive statistic. All right, where are we at? Am I up?
Colter, over to you, your third pick.
All right, my third pick. This is somebody that I have a little bit more experience covering. This young lady, her senior year was the second year of Skyline Sports, the first year of Reno, but I covered her all 4 years. She was a 4-year starter. She is second in Big Sky Conference history in assists, and she is the only player in the history of the conference to lead the league in assists 3 straight years. You talk about unorthodox, she's 5 feet tall. They listed her at 5'2". She is 5 feet tall. My pick is Fantasia Hilliard from Sacramento State. She was on the front end. She was there when Jamie White was still there, before Jamie White took the Fresno State job. Did a good job running the team. They actually had a really good year when they were the 2 seed, but then they lost out in the semifinals in Reno, and it kind of came to a screeching halt. And then they transitioned to Bunkie Harkle Road, and Hilliard made that transition pretty flawlessly. I think that she gets a little bit under-remembered because Sac State didn't really make any noise during the neutral site tournament. They missed out on hosting it. That little stretch they were good, and then they sort of fell flat in Reno that first year. But Fantasia Hilliard's my pick. One other fun tidbit about her brother, her older brother, Brian Hilliard, one of the great running backs of the modern era at Sacramento State. So they have a little family legacy there at Sac State. I just thought it's hard to not pick somebody that leads the league in a major statistical category 3 times, and she's the only one to ever do that.
Impressive, and a mighty might, right? So, I mean, that's a small player. Tiny. 2 Sac State players on the board. They play a fun style of basketball there. I mean,
well, for sure.
Up and down, I mean, even when they're not winning a ton of games, or they are, it's always fun to watch Sac State.
I mean, they've been better than maybe they got credit for, even though the Mark Campbell teams got so much credit for breaking through. They had this unorthodox style that helped them win games, and then they just didn't recruit very well. They just didn't have the players. Like this, Bunkie Harkle Road was there for 9 years, maybe 8 years, but the second half of it, they had no real memorable players, and that sort of set them back a little bit. But like that end of the Jamie White into the first part of the Bunkie Harkle Road, and then Mark Campbell, like those teams were like top half teams usually.
Sure.
Nobody wanted to play them. It just got towards the end of the Harkle Road era that they got a little bit overrun. All right, up next, you're Brooks. You're up.
All right, so a player that I think maximized her potential about as much as anyone that we've covered, especially in our home markets. A former volleyball player that really put her stamp on Lady Grizz history, and that's Jace Henderson, a gal that I think was second team all league as a senior, averaged 13 and 9, a player that developed at a clip that we haven't really seen for someone that comes in quite raw. Who knows if this player can really make it and contribute off the bench, ends up being a starter that leads the team in minutes, leads the league in field goal percentage, shot 57% as a senior, and just another player that plays with that tremendous joy and obvious affection for the game, and just an absolutely memorable player for me.
We have had we've written about hundreds of athletes throughout the Skyline Sports era. Certainly, many of them have given verbal thanks to us for telling their story and communicating that. We've also received a couple dozen probably messages on the social medias and stuff like that. This sums up Jace Henderson in a nutshell. The only athlete, at least to my knowledge, that has ever delivered a handwritten thank you card for writing a feature story about her is Jace Henderson. That sums up Jace. She has a heart of gold. She is one of the sweetest, nicest people you will ever meet. I felt so honored to get to know her after her playing career was over. She became an assistant at Montana. Then she went through a terrible tragedy. She was engaged to Jesse Sims, the late Montana football player who died in a horrible ATV accident. But Jace has gotten through all that. She's doing great. She's working at the University of Nebraska. She was coaching against Caitlin Clark last year. So she's been able to weather the storm, fight through the adversity, and we wish her nothing but the best because she's just such a positive and bright young lady. And So, and she was a very, very good basketball player, especially her final season at Montana.
Always remember the game she had against Idaho in Dahlberg.
Basically,
her senior year.
She was like perfect, right?
She was
like 31
points and 12
she was
rebounds.
She was like 13 of 14 from the field or something like that.
13 of 17.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
Baller.
it was a very impressive effort for sure. All right, Jace Henderson on the board. Man, now it gets interesting, but I'm just this next pick, I'm just going straight up with not who I think, but who I know is the best player that's on this entire list right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Somebody that is maybe not as remembered as a Big Sky Conference figure because North Dakota's time within the Big Sky Conference was sort of in and out, even though it did last for 6 or 7 years. I think it was 2012 to 2018 or 2019. So 6 or 7 years. It just seemed like the blink of an eye when you look back on it retrospectively. But North Dakota was very good. North Dakota hosted a Big Sky tournament 2 years before it went to a neutral site. And then they stayed pretty competitive. And the most statistically productive player that they had, and somebody that multiple people that we polled said should be in our top 10. I'm going with Lexi Clabo. She was the Southpaw post. She averaged about 18 points and 9 rebounds per game during her final 2 seasons there at UND. She was a multiple-time first-team All-Big Sky selection. And again, I talked to many assistants around the Big Sky Conference when we were sort of making our top 10 list, and several of them said that Lexi Clabo should be on the list. I don't really have any like definitive memories of her more than just like every time you watched her play, you just thought she was really, really tough. And she was one of basically 3 players from North Dakota that I thought were really like memorable Big Sky Conference figures. If we don't have anything on her more than that, we can just move to the next pick unless anybody has anything.
No, let's move on.
Okay.
Let's recap. So we're 4 picks in. We'll say this is halfway through. We'll say 8 picks each.
Yeah, great.
Colter's got Cola Badbear, Haley Hodgins, Fantasia Hillard, and Lexi Clabo from North Dakota. Brooks, who got the first pick, Moran Johnson from Sac State, Hannah Caudill from Montana State, Geraldine McCorkle from Idaho, and then Jace Henderson from Montana. And Brooks, back over to you for the 5th.
How do we feel about picking a pair of players? Is it fair?
I mean, there's no rules here. These teams are not competing against each other.
that's fine.
If it's a pair, then it's...
Make your case.
If
then
the
I'll
pair
tell you
was
if you can or
memorable,
can't.
then yeah.
I'm trying to think of where you're going here.
I'm going with 2 Montana natives
Okay.
who are as tough of a player or players that we've ever covered. It's not even close.
Okay.
They're 2 of the most impactful, high energy, program defining players that you can have, especially with who surrounded them.
Okay. Oh, and they didn't go to Montana.
Correct.
And they didn't go to Montana State. You can pick them as a pair.
Lizzie and Natalie Klinker.
Man,
Absolutely.
I wanted Natalie Klinker so bad.
We could say that you have a
you
say
got 'em.
in this, but I think
got
that
'em.
they can go together for a very specific reason in the sense that they went against the grain with not coming to Montana and playing for the Lady Grizz.
They're from
Fairfield.
Fairfield,
Yeah.
for those wondering.
And Natalie Klinker, oh buddy, you don't want to mess with Natalie Klinker down low.
She's one of the strongest players
One of the
in
strongest
league
players that we've ever covered. And then Lizzie Klinker, equally as feisty, a little bit more skilled on the offensive side of it.
A little bit more of a glider, for
could
sure.
definitely put the ball in the hoop. They played kind of a gruff style. They played kind of a throwback style. You know what they play like? College basketball players.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
play like they don't care about what's in their future as far as what's happening next game, what's happening next season, where am I going to play professionally. They were all in it. Every single moment I ever watched those girls play, they absolutely got after it. And again, when you are surrounded by kind of a offensive-minded, some gals that can really put the ball in the hoop. Of course, they want to play some defense, but you put those girls in the mix, I feel like they should have won several titles.
They did. I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
But by themselves. Like,
maybe-
as they continued through their career, it seems like that was a team that, how are you going to beat a team that has scores plus these two
I mean,
girls?
here's the thing. Okay, so coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? But let's say that those teams don't lose to Portland State in that horrific shooting game that basically ended their Big Sky Conference tournament hopes. Remove that bad shooting outing, right? Remove the pandemic that canceled the championship game. Just change those 2 things, And Idaho's playing in the league championship game 4 years in a row, and they're gunning for 3 out of 4 in the NCAA tournament. Who knows what would have happened if they get past Portland State? Who knows if they would have won that next championship game? Who knows if they would have been able to compete with that great Montana State team they were set to play in the pandemic cancellation? But either way, like, they were right there. That's why we have 3 Idaho players in our top 10, as well as 3 more in this Big Sky All-Stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and, we talked a lot about that Montana State team in 2019-20. That Idaho team would have certainly had a chance against them in the championship game. They were coming off. I mean, they destroyed Idaho State in the semifinals, and that Idaho State team was a year away.
Yes.
But that was a quality team, and Idaho destroyed them, and it was due to the Clinker sisters just going to the boards again and again.
Yep.
Keeping the ball alive, kicking it back out to the shooters. Just Idaho State had absolutely no answer for them when they were at their best. Super impactful players.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going with this one next because I just don't want you to draft her. I got Rebecca Cardenas from Southern Utah. Rebecca Cardenas played on teams that really struggled to win games until it became tournament time, and then Southern Utah was a handful, and they definitely won a couple games. They ousted the Lady Grizz one year. Cardenas, even with Southern Utah sort of up and down as their team success, she was a 2-time first-team All-League performer. She was a Defensive Player of the Year in the league. Again, my backcourt right now is Rebecca Cardenas, who's 5'1", and Fantasia Hilliard, who's 5 feet. And guess what? We have no defensive liabilities because they're so good defensively. Cardenas has got to be the best undersized defender that we've covered, right? I mean, she is small, and she can play on ball. I mean, Darian White's also
Darian White's up there, and Kylie Jimenez was up there from Portland State as well.
Here's what's crazy, though. Both those girls are several inches taller than Cardenas. Cardenas was listed at 5'2". Darian White's 5'5", I believe.
And we're definitely not here to talk down on any aspect of any of these players' attributes. But Rebecca Cardenas, as I just mentioned with Jace Henderson, Jace Henderson's an elite athlete. Rebecca Cardenas is kind of a average athlete.
Very fast, but not a basketball.
Maybe maximized her potential as much as anyone. I mean she's
times
tiny,
first
man.
team All-League for
multiple times first team All-League. I mean, she got after it, and tiny.
All right, you're up.
Oh man, this is tough because now I'm getting to kind of the meat of things where I got some players I really love. One that I am going to pick for a variety of reasons, mostly because of we talk memorable and we talk skilled and we talk about contributing to winning, and we also talk about players that play young, so you get to see them play over and over and over again. I'm going to take Northern Colorado guard Hannah Simmental.
Whoa, very good. I thought you were going to go with a different Northern Colorado guard, but Hannah Simmental is a very good one. She definitely helped the Bears navigate an interesting time. They had some weird stuff, right? I mean, they have this peak year where they go to the NCAA tournament. Cammie Etheridge parlays that success to go to Washington. Then they hired Jenny Huth as a assistant from UCLA, and she does okay. And then in the tournament, they do really well. They get to the semis. I think in year 2, Alicia Davis was the Big Sky MVP. And then out of nowhere, and for no really explainable reason, nobody's ever been able to really connect the dots. It's irrelevant the why now. But Huth basically walks away. She resurfaces as an assistant at Oregon State. Alicia Davis walks away. She goes to Colorado Mesa, of all places, and doesn't really ever play again. That's a weird thing to happen. I mean, you have the best player in the conference.
That was going to be a dominant team.
You have the best player in the conference and a good coach who's making waves, and then they both just leave, and you kind of have to start over. And I mean, Kristen Mattio's done a fine job, but Simmental was the one that got caught in the mix of all that and had to help them navigate it. 2 years ago, she was playing on a roster with 9 freshmen. Last year, Northern Colorado got to be at least decently competitive, and she's just a very consistent player. Good pick.
A lot of point guards. That's what I'm getting from this.
It's a point guard heavy league.
It's a point guard heavy league, and also that's just a great archetype of player.
That's
a
right.
little point guard.
You're telling me that I got Idaho's Geraldine McCorkle, both Clinker sisters? I'm rolling here.
It's a good team.
I'm rebounding the basketball.
It's a good team. You're 3 point guards deep already.
Yeah, here we go.
Well, I'm about to draft my third point guard. She's a power point guard. I go in Sailor Grandin, Idaho State.
Oh, baby.
Sailor Grandin is as good of a downhill point as we've seen. She made 2, not 1, but 2 of the most clutch shots.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she was if Seton Sobolewski and John Newley are the Kings of Reno, she was the Queen of Reno.
Yeah.
When Idaho State had those 2 runs. I mean, those back-to-back years where Idaho State finished like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. they won like 7 Big Sky Conference tournament games because they played in the championship back-to-back years, even having to play on the first day, and Sailor Granite had a huge part in that.
Huge part of it, man. And she's just her ability to use space in her body was tremendous. And you're talking about those, some game winners or some, game tying shots. She'd get to, 15 feet in the honey hole and hit a little leaner. There's really no one that had her game. We talk about unique, like Hannah Simmental. When I talk about her, she plays basketball like you teach it. Sailor Grandin does not. No. She plays a whole different style, a whole different brand of basketball. Really fun, memorable player. Absolutely.
All right, two picks left.
Okay, 2 picks left.
Man, there's so many players.
There's a lot of players
so
here.
Okay.
I am going to pick a really unique player, another one that, a little unorthodox, a player that when she had wind and was not injured, could play with the best of them. She could run block to block, really, really dominant rebounder, and also just a player that I think if she was kind of a centerpiece and you had guards around her, you really had a chance to be a tough matchup. And that's Kyarika Rashid.
Yes, Northern Arizona.
Northern Arizona forward.
Kyarika.
Yep. It's spelled really funny.
For sure.
Kyarika Rashid. Again, when she's healthy, her knees are good and she's running well. A real dominant rebounder and a real block-to-block scorer that could draw fouls and kind of just got people involved emotionally in the game. She played pretty
Angel
loose
Reese before Angel Reese?
Yeah, kind of like that. Play loose, kind of get you involved.
She's not quite as aggressive as
she's
Angel
not,
Reese.
but she'll talk a little smack, and she's not scared to kind of like rip up through your arms and draw some fouls, and she's just a good player.
Yeah, really fun player, undersized post, but like you mentioned, could run back and forth. She's Big Sky preseason MVP that one year, coming off that good performance in the tournament. And I just really always hated the timing of those last couple injuries for her because I thought there was development happening in her game too. She was with that Northern Arizona team. She showed just a little bit being able to step outside and expand her range, and I was like, the sky's the limit for this girl because she was a great athlete. She could give you the work on the block.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time, and then sort of her career just petered out with those injuries at the end, which is really too bad. But great player, and of course those Northern Arizona teams fell short a couple times too.
Absolutely.
Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
All right, my next pick is who I believe is probably the most underrated player of the Skyline Sports era. She was the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year. For the best team in the Skyline Sports era, we had Northern Colorado's 2018-2019 women as our number one team over the last 10 years in Big Sky Conference women's basketball history. Kiana Williams was the heart and soul of that team. Certainly Savannah Smith was the prolific scorer, but Kiana Williams was the one that made it all tick, and she's one of the better sort of team. I would say she's one of the better defensive players, period. I think she's probably the best team defensive player of the Skyline Sports era. She's, it's the cliche to say, like, her game goes so much farther beyond the stats, but it really does. Like, she was the person that made the whole thing tick. She was the enforcer. She was the one that got everybody's backs, and she played a huge role in Northern Colorado having that great year.
All right, I'm willing to forfeit my last pick because it's a really, really good pick since I got both clinkers.
We got to push it to 10. We need two more, so let's just go fast.
Lightning round, yeah.
We're just going to go fast let's go.
I feel bad, though, because I'm going to take a really, really, really good player.
You got 2 picks left. I got 3 picks left. We're going quick.
So you each got 3.
Okay. Oh, we each got 3. It's 7 each?
7 each.
Okay, go.
Jacinta Buckley from
Buckley is a great
Eastern
one.
Washington. Talk about a
very similar vein
player.
as Kiana Williams, right? Kiana Williams is Jacinta Buckley is taller, probably not as athletic, but similar sort of role on their teams, right? Like the den mother, the person that keeps them all together,
but
right?
Who's talking more than Buckley?
Man.
Who's hitting more big shots? Who's getting more crafty with a little poke behind steel? Who's like driving team culture? Again,
she's awesome.
Transfers into that Eastern Washington team with a new head coach that wasn't very good and drove it all the way to going to win 29 games and a Big Sky title. And she's just a culture driver. Again, when you talk about memorable, I'll never forget her.
incredible press conference this year after they win the title
So
with her
good.
and Jamie Loera, who knew each other for years and years and years and finally got to play each other and go to the NCAA tournament together. That's definitely a memorable moment for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, my next one is somebody that I actually was been thinking about since last week because our most recent Where Are They Now subject on our Nuanez Now radio/podcast series with Krista Redpath was Katie Edwards, a former University of Montana basketball player who hails from, she's from Denton, but she went to high school at Lewistown, at Fergus County High School in Lewistown, Montana. The extension there is 3 of the greatest shooters in Lady Grizz and Big Sky Conference history all grew up in Lewistown, Montana. Katie Edwards, Sonia Rogers, and my next pick, Macaulay Feller. Macaulay Feller was a multiple sport athlete. She was the best volleyball player in the state of Montana coming out of high school. She walked on to the Lady Grizz. Nobody thought she had a chance. Then when she started running, gunning, wheeling, and dealing Jack City all over the place, I thought she was going to break Robin Selvig's brain. I thought there was no chance that she was ever going to be a real deal player. Well, guess what? The Huck and Chuck turned into one of the most prolific shooters that the Lady Grizz have seen. Her last 2 years, she was unbelievable, scoring like 15 points per game. Went from walk-on that nobody thought had any chance to being an all-Big Sky player. I need a shooter, and she has one of the more unique swaggers that the league has seen. I'm going Macaulay Feller.
Absolutely one of my favorite players in this whole exercise. She would have been near the top of my draft board because she was still there when I was in school at Montana, and it was just like, well, I got in for free, but like absolutely worth the price of admission in terms of her style, her swagger, the way she carried herself on the court,
the way
some of
she
the
would
things
go
that
back
she attempted.
the way that she would go back at Selvig, like when she would take a bad shot and make it and just laugh in his face. It was so fun, so classic.
And a really good player, as you mentioned, by the end too. I mean, played a really big role in that 14-15 team that won the title and was on our list of the top 10 greatest teams. Great pick. Two more.
All right, 2 more each.
2 more apiece.
Okay.
Oh, man, I just got so many left.
Well, of course. We have a list of like hundreds of players here. So
I'm going to leave 2 right now on the board that maybe you'll pick that I have kind of in the family, kind of in the same neck of the woods. And I'm going to pick a gal that I thought was a tremendous player. She kind of had it all, and she played with a real true pace. She played on some really good teams. Also, as you mentioned, Colter, when you talk about people who are being thankful or people with that heart of gold, someone that was super appreciative and always super kind off the court, and just a memorable player. And that's Idaho State guard Brooke Blair.
Great player. I really became a huge Brooke Blair fan watching her and interacting with her. You're right. She was always so. I mean, we don't cover Idaho State directly, although we've covered Idaho State quite a bit during this. But for example, like we haven't had a crew go to Reed Gym and cover a game. Andrew has done that before. We've covered Idaho State a whole bunch when they've come through Montana, both Montana State, and of course the Big Sky tournament. But Brooke Blair always went out of her way to come over and say thank you for interviewing her, asking questions, pictures. A very kind person, and she was a great player. So good pick.
I also love people who have the resurgence from the injury she had, serious knee injury, come back and really make it happen, and lead the team in scoring as a senior. None of that's easy. She's another import, right? I mean, things that are really challenging to do.
All right, my next pick is somebody that I just think has to be acknowledged somewhere along the lines because she was the only first-team All-League player on one of our, I think we had them as the 7th best team in the Skyline Sports era, and she was the only first-team All-League pick on that team. Sydney Riley, Portland State. She was their leading scorer. Ashley Bolsa gets a ton of credit for being their best athlete and probably the catalyst of what they did defensively. Kylie Jimenez gets a ton of credit for running the show and being the freshman of the year on that team. Courtney West gets a ton of credit for being the centerpiece as a 6'4" rim defender in the middle of that Portland State zone. But Sydney Riley was the most prolific of those players. And again, she was the only first-team All-League pick on that Portland State team that is still to this day, only Portland State team that has gone to the NCAA tournament. All right, you're up.
I mean, I'm going to keep going with this guard train. I mean, I have a lot of forwards.
Lots of guards.
I have lots of forwards that I want to mention, I think, in the lightning round especially. But I left this player on the board for the last 5 rounds, anticipating you to take her, Colter.
Okay.
But I'm very happy to because as far as memorable goes, as far as stick-with-itness goes, and as far as someone that could have had a whole variety of paths, but ended up, I think, right where she probably hoped and dreamed to be, and that's Montana State guard Lindsey Stockton.
Whoa, good one.
Not only was it a real honor to sit courtside next to her dad when he coached for a year, I thought it was pretty darn cool. I've known the guy. I know his son, Houston, very well. We played at Montana together, buddies. I know their family. I met all the siblings.
There's lots of them.
I feel familiar with them, and I still felt starstruck. I thought it was awesome, but that's not why she's on this list. She herself comes in such high accolades in high school, someone that has a ton of potential, right? And up and down and up and down, and can she find the groove? And at the end of the day, a really, really high-level player, super productive player, defensively got after it. I love her mentality. I mean, we talk about players that play with joy. She's a person that's getting gritty with it, getting after it. I loved all that.
One quick Lindsey Stockton story. When I was still working at the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, that was when Lindsey Stockton was, I believe, a sophomore. Kyle Sample, one of our great friends and a former Skyline Sports contributor, he came to work for me at the Bozeman Chronicle for a brief moment in time. I handed off the women's basketball beat to him. He decided he wanted to do like a little fun first-person type story where he was going to challenge Lindsey Stockton to a game of horse. He challenges Lindsey Stockton to a game of horse. She's very reluctant to do this, not out of any sort of fear, but because she knew it was going to be an utter waste of her time. So she tells Kyle, meet me at the gym at 5:45 in the morning and we can play horse. The game lasted 12 minutes. He lost HORSE to 0. She walked off, didn't even do an interview with him. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. A sports writer endure. Don't challenge Division I basketball girls to shooting contests. They're going to beat you, I promise. Shout out to Sample because I know he's overseas right now, so he's not going to listen to this, so he doesn't even know that we're making fun of him. All right, Brooks got a pair, so I'm picking a pair just because I think you have to acknowledge the way that these two worked in tandem for the vast majority of their careers. When Tricia Binford first started doing this, I thought it was a silly idea. She decided we're going to have a post, and we're going to split the minutes exactly evenly.
Good pick.
We're gonna go 20 minutes each.
20
period.
minutes each.
It doesn't matter who's playing better. You guys are both playing 20 minutes, and it doesn't matter who gets what statistics. But when you combine the statistics, when each player averages 8 points and 4 rebounds or 8 points and 5 rebounds, now your center position is giving you 18 and 8 every single night. 16 and 8, 18 and 8. And I thought their ability to do it together was one of the things that really helped Montana State set the pace. And when Montana State went 19-1 in league play, part of it's because Fallon Frigi was the league MVP. Part of it's because they had 6 seniors. Part of it's because they had one of the best freshman class the league's ever seen, including Darian White and Cole Badbear. But I thought the X factor to that team was having a center on the floor that was never tired because Blair Braxton and Madeline Smith split that. They were basically one player. Even though they were both individually great players, to have the unselfishness to be able to do that and then to do it like they did it for multiple years in a row and never waver, just be satisfied with sort of 2 being better than 1. That was the whole key to Montana. I mean, there's never been a team that's won more than 19 league games. That's what that Montana State team won. They went 19-1. And those 2 young ladies had a huge hand in it. All right, last pick. Anything to add to those?
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's 10 apiece. That was
great.
That was great. That was really fun discussion here. We'll wrap it up. Colter finishes with the team Cola Badbear from Montana State, Haley Hodgins from Eastern Washington, Fantasia Hillard from Sac State, Lexi Claybo from North Dakota, Rebecca Cardenas from Southern Utah, Sailor Grandin from Idaho State, Kiana Williams from Northern Colorado, McCallie Feller from Montana, Sydney Riley from Portland State, and then the center tandem of Blair Braxton and Madeline Smith from Montana State. Brooks, Marianne Johnson from Sac State, Hannah Caudle from Montana State, Geraldine McCorkle from Idaho, Jace Henderson from Montana, Lizzie and Natalie Klinker from Idaho, Hannah Simmental from Northern Colorado, Kyarika Rashid from Northern Arizona, Jacinta Buckley from Eastern Washington, Brooke Blair from Idaho State, Lindsey Stockton from Montana State. That's great lists. I mean, I could have picked another 10 here. There's so many that we didn't talk about.
We're not going to read the entire draft board. I just got to highlight just a few because it's worth recognizing. Players that didn't go in the Big Sky All-Stars that still deserve their names to be remembered include Carmen G. Feller. She's one of the only first.
I try to fit her in.
One of the only first-team All-League players that is on this board. She's 4th in school history at Montana in scoring. Oleana Squires has been a pro since she reignited her basketball career. Former Montana State star who was a great sharpshooter. I think you also have to acknowledge Christina Salvatore was a first-team All-Conference player at the University of Idaho. She was just a sort of a short-timer during the Skyline era because her senior year was Idaho's first year back in the league, so we only covered her for that one season. Savannah Scott and Stephanie Lee were both very memorable players at Northern Colorado. that I think certainly could have landed on the list. Isnell Natabo was a huge key, as was Liana Tillman.
She's on my list.
To Sac State's recent rise. We mentioned Sophie Glancy at Northern Arizona, but Emily Rodabot at NAU probably also was a high caliber player that could have been picked. Maya Lloyd was a 2-time first-team All-League selection from North Dakota, who sort of got left out. We're probably going to get to a couple of the Weber State girls just in this upcoming sort of rapid-fire lightning round. And then the other Eastern Washington one that I really wanted to fit in was Lexi Nelson, because she's from Butte, America. She was a great player, a first-team All-League caliber player. There's several Eastern Washington players that probably could have got off the board as well. Who else did we miss that needs to be recognized?
Well, look, when I came up with the idea for this entire segment, I almost called them the Diaba Kanate All-Stars, because Diaba Kanate is absolutely on the top of my list from Idaho State, just in terms of the athleticism, the way she attacked the game. I mean,
Diaba Kanate, Grace Kenyon, Tamika Whitman, Epiphany Woods, Delaney Moore, Montana Altroge, Dora Goles, Laura Bello, Anna Ponachichio, like all those girls
just from Idaho State
could have been. That's the Idaho State All Stars. Every single one of those young ladies was considered for both our top 10 as well as this list.
Yep.
They all just had sort of they were great teams because they all played with each other.
They're teams.
They're
You think
teams.
about it as one thing. It's one pick. It's one team.
That's what Seton Sobolewski does best. So maybe Seton Sobolewski deserves a spot on both the Big Sky Top 10 and the Skyline Sports All-Stars.
Darren Hickok at Weber State put together a fantastic career. I loved Violet Capri Morrow from Eastern Washington. Even from Northern Arizona, Caitlin Malvar, which was Lori Payne's first great point guard there.
Yeah, and then she kind of just disappeared.
Good player.
Yeah.
Alexis Chapman from Northern Colorado had a great couple years there, really fun to watch.
Yep.
It's been a great 10 years of Big Sky, of women's basketball in the Big Sky. I mean, we could have gone for another hour on these players.
Do I get to reel off a couple here?
Yeah, reel off a couple.
Go for
it. Maybe, and that was a lot of players, so pardon me for repeating any. Sophia Stiles is a memorable player.
Sophia Stiles
gets after it, right, up and down.
No doubt.
I think you have to mention Tori Martell from Montana State.
One other Lady Grizz, too, you got to mention is Carly Selvig. That's another one that was sort of a Skyline short-timer because her senior year was our first year doing this. But she and Jamie Loetta are the only two-time Defensive Player of the Years in the Big Sky in the last 20 years.
Back to back, yep.
She deserves some recognition. But Sophia Stiles, also a Montana-made, multiple-time Gatorade Player of the Year, who overcame a ton. I mean, coaching change and injuries.
Talk about athletic, right? I mean, goodness gracious. I don't know if we've mentioned Gina Markson yet at Idaho and Montana.
Yep.
A very memorable and a very solid player. You already mentioned all the Idaho State gals. A lot of the, Northern Colorado, Sac State, all were awesome players. Do we mention the Moran sisters from Northern Arizona?
I haven't mentioned them.
No.
Yeah, I think Naya and Olivia Moran are awesome. I was going to almost put them in that same category as the
twin thing
Clinkers.
is interesting too, right?
They're twins. I mean, they play a little bit of a different style, but also really unique. I mean, I love watching both those girls play.
They define a lot of what Lori Payne wanted to do at Northern Arizona.
Totally.
Her with those
Underrated.
two with Regan Skank.
Underrated, man. And, not huge body types and just still getting after it defensively, guarding for 90 feet. I mean, those kind of things are definitely important. Did anyone mention Desiree Hansen from Portland State?
Well, she's going to be one of the most memorable. She's on
come on, man.
We're talking unorthodox and memorable. That's going to be one of my
Desiree
picks
Hansen
for sure.
from small town Oregon, a girl that wearing number 55. She'd chuck it from the shoulder, score at all three levels. I mean, a dominant player, man. I love Desiree Hansen, and she contributed to winning teams as well. I have a couple Weber State picks that I thought were awesome early in the Skyline era. Deshara Thomas was a really good player. She averaged 15.
Deshira,
15 points back-to-back seasons. Yarden Danan from Israel. I always loved watching her play. Really an interesting, true international style that I remember well. Emma Tolbert and Kayla Watkins, who I think you guys mentioned, both, dominant body types, dominant rebounders, and could score over both shoulders. I thought they were both really good players. The last couple I had were Uriah Howard from Eastern Washington, I thought was a really good player, really good on-ball defender. And Maisie Burnham, who is, I think, the freshman of the year in the Big Sky. I believe she transferred out.
I can't remember where she went. She went somewhere.
But I remember watching her as a freshman and being like, this girl has elite talent and good size and can score. I mean, I thought that she was going to be a good player too. So, we could go on and on, but I think that What a list. I mean, that's a lot of talented basketball
All right,
players.
Team Up Top has been providing some of the coolest Montana-made gear and lifestyle clothing for more than a decade, and now the legendary brand is excited to partner with SKYLINE Sports to celebrate our 10th anniversary with a variety of top 10 lists, counting down some of the best athletes of the last decade throughout the Big Sky Conference. Up Top clothing was started by a pair of Montana brothers who have a great passion for the Treasure State and all the people who make it so great. Whether you're in the market for Grizz, Bobcat, or Frontier Conference gear, whether you want a t-shirt or a cap hat or any other high-quality lifestyle clothing, be sure to visit teamuptop.com. If you shop online, use the checkout code SKYLINE15 to get 15% off all online orders. Teamuptop.com. Up Top Clothing, reminding you to take a step back and enjoy the moment. All right, in the name of time, we have about 14 minutes and 30 seconds for our lightning round.
Yeah,
so
let's keep
let's
that
go.
same energy. I love just rattling off the names. I'll throw out the questions. You guys give me the answers.
Great. We don't need to extrapolate much.
Best coach of the last 10 years in the Big Sky.
Seton Sobolewski.
Seton Sobolewski.
Who else needs to be mentioned?
Trisha
Bittenford. John Newley's a distant third.
John Newley did a good job.
Best role player the last 10 years.
I think Lori Payne also has to be mentioned in the best coaches because Lori Payne took a program that was nothing.
And it's still on the way up.
Yeah. Idaho State has always had good, John Newley was at Idaho State before Seton Sobolewski. Idaho State had Natalie Doma before Seton ever got there. And, Seton's done a great job. Idaho also had some good basketball tradition, but Northern Arizona was nothing. Northern Arizona was playing in front of 190 people, and they still are, but Lori Payne,
really good.
Lori Payne's done a great job. I mean, they're back-to-back Big Sky Conference champions. They were like a 4-win team when she took over, so that she needs to be mentioned as well.
Let's keep it on the coaches. Best coach quote. Consistently best.
Oh, man. I mean,
John Newley's pretty good.
John Newley, if you're going Mount Rushmore of all time quotes, period, in the history of all sports, SKYLINE Sports, John Newley post-game after Idaho beat Idaho State in the Big Sky Championship in Reno.
Oh, buddy.
He's going nuts. Their sports information director is trying to cut him off. He's like, you know what? I'll just find the clip and we'll splice it into this podcast at the very end of this clip. It's only about 90 seconds, but he's like, talking about he's dedicated his whole life to making Idaho State basketball, Pocatello, and then he says, they say the grass isn't greener. The grass is greener in Moscow. V's up. And Allie Ford just gives the V's, and they walk off the podium, and it was like, oh, Idaho's here. Idaho's in the league. Idaho's got some swag. That certainly has got to be up there. You got to give Trisha Binford some love there because, she used to not be great at it, and then she's become great at it. She's been doing it for 20 years. Also, though, when you develop a relationship, I've been interviewing her consistently for 13 years now, so she can trust me and us and all that, and she knows we know the game, but also women's basketball, so she's got to be certainly up there as well. I'm trying to rack my brain for other ones real quick. There was nobody else that really...
I liked Travis Brewster. He could give a fiery quote at North Dakota.
He's a fiery guy.
Yeah, but Lori Payne gives great quotes.
Lori Payne's great to talk to.
But when you're talking about inflammatory, John, when you're looking for the hot take or whatever, talking about the love of your team and all. There's some good ones out there.
Sure.
Best role player in the last 10 years in the Big Sky.
I think there's two options.
Kiana
Williams and Natalie Klinker.
Those are both really good.
Yeah, I think those are the two options.
Yeah,
I think that you can't really go wrong with either. I'd probably say Klinker.
Man,
Kiana Williams is really good. It's hard.
It's a really hard one.
The Montana State girls, there's some girls
Tori
on there.
Martell.
Yeah, there's some girls there that weren't.
I was such a huge fan of Carly Wilson at Idaho.
Yeah,
she was that quintessential I don't ever need to shoot. She would score 4 points and control the entire game. Definitely. Because of all of her pace. I thought she was a great
Kiana Williams was a bigger
point
catalyst
guard
to winning, though.
For sure. Savannah Scott has to be.
Oh, Savannah Scott's a good one for Northern Colorado.
Because she's not really a role player, but she's like the right-hand gal. She's the Robin to Savannah Smith's Batman.
I think you got to be third in line to be a role player.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Is there anybody else on these? I'm trying to think.
I didn't. I scrolled it pretty good. What's next?
Most swagger on the court in the last 10 years in the Big Sky era.
Oh, man. Moran Johnson.
Silent but deadly.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the movie Sin City, we used to call her Mio. Mio is the assassin that would jump off the top of the buildings with the samurai swords and cut people's heads off and then disappear without talking. That's Moran Johnson.
Hair done, nails done, everything big.
She's so sweet.
Most memorable player to watch.
Most memorable player to watch. Wow. I mean, it's hard to not say Peyton Ferris, who was our number one. I reread my senior profile about Peyton Ferris.
Right there.
We mentioned the knee injuries, but like Peyton Ferris literally couldn't practice for like more than a year during her college career, and then still kept gutting it out, and then fixed the knee and goes from, I was reading the senior profile, she shot like 28% her sophomore year, and then she's the Big Sky MVP by the time she's a senior. Completely unorthodox.
I think it's
game.
good. I think it's good. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's Darian White.
Yeah.
All 4 years. Yeah. Never,
and just
never
the two, both sides of the court on ball all the time.
couldn't take your eyes
offense and
off
defense.
of her.
You're just watching her.
Or Taylor Pierce when she's cooking.
Taylor Pierce when she's cooking's right there. Yeah.
most unorthodox player the last 10 years.
Man, it's got to be an Idaho State girl. Maybe Sailor Grandin or...
I mean, Steffi Orrs is pretty unorthodox. Sailor Grandin's pretty unorthodox.
You mentioned Desiree Hanson already.
I mean,
Epiphany Woods is pretty unorthodox.
Yeah. I mean, Desiree Hanson's a great one.
Desiree Hanson.
Desiree Hanson is like, you know how St. Paul and the Broken Bones, the lead singer, he doesn't know, like he really thinks he's James Brown, right?
Right.
Like Desiree Hanson like really thinks that she's like Stephon Marbury or like Allen Iverson.
Perfect. I love it.
And she's just like, she's from like a 300-person town in Oregon. She's just like a redheaded white girl, and she just like, she really has like street ball game.
She does.
It was so awesome to watch.
She's not faking it.
Like,
and she came in that way as a freshman. That's how you could tell that she wasn't faking it.
She hits the buzzer beater to beat. Who did they even play in the championship? Because that whole bracket
Eastern
fell-
Washington, right?
Eastern Washington is the 6th seed. But she hits the step through jumper to win it. Then she's sitting up there at the press conference. I would venture to say that's the first time she's ever been in front of the press. She is 0% nervous. She's fully stone cold. Somebody asks her, "Hey, Desiree, take us through that shot." She's like, "Man, I made that shot out at the playground in my hometown for years and years and years."
Yeah.
And Lynn Kennedy interjects and he's like, "This girl won the small school Oregon State championship 2 years in a row. Like, I recruited her to do this. Like, this was not an accident.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they left Michael Jordan over here open in the corner as a freshman. Like, they drew the play up for her. Straight up baller."
Hooper.
Is that the most memorable quote from a player in the last 10 years?
Oh, man.
Jasmine Hamas describing what it was like to win the league outright for the first time in 25 years and then lose on a 3/4 court buzzer beater the very first game of the tournament, the very first time it had ever been at a neutral site. That was pretty unforgettable. John Newley, the grass is greener in Moscow is pretty memorable. I'm trying to think of some other good ones.
I thought Summer Hansen cursing on stage at this year's tournament because she's Australian and
That
didn't
was
know that it
really
was being
good.
streamed
Yeah, that was
on
really
ESPN.
good.
I thought that was fantastic this year.
That was really good. I'm trying to think of some other ones. I mean, talking about unforgettable, it was not a positive one, but like in the year in Reno when the Lady Grizz lost to Sacramento State, and then they missed their like there's a timer for the NCAA to get the winning team in and then the losing team in, and like you have to hit the time, and then the Lady Grizz are not there. But like the biggest media contingent to cover the tournament is all the Montana people, so we're just waiting, and we end up waiting for like close to an hour, and then they show up, and everybody has tear-stained faces, and they're trying to like put on a good face to talk about it, but you could tell they clearly had just had like a massive locker room fight.
Yeah.
That was unforgettable. That was by no means positive, and it made me feel awful, like trying to then. We just wanted some quotes to write to our game stories or whatever, and that was when you knew that something was like amiss with the Lady Grizz, because they're literally violating an NCAA rule by not showing up to the press conference.
Yeah, it wasn't not good.
That was not good.
We've seen some tears. I would say, as a quote, Cola Bad Bear was really, really good.
Cola Bad was good. Darian White reading a pre-prepared speech.
Yeah, it's good.
Post Big Sky Championship, dedicating it to Martha Cooter, Oleana Squires, Claire Lundberg, Madeline Smith, Blair Braxton, and Fallon
seniors from
Freegee
that year.
from the year that got called off from COVID.
It's very good.
That was very good as well.
Best athlete.
Buddy.
Best athlete.
My gosh.
Man. I'm gonna have to take just a second to.
Darian's up there.
Darian White is up there for sure.
Yeah.
Alicia Davis is pretty spectacular.
man.
Alicia Davis
And
is really
Natabo
good.
is pretty spectacular as well.
Man, I'm just trying to go through all the teams really quick.
Oh, guys, hold on. Come on. This is easy. Reagan Skank.
Oh, Regan Skank
my
is definitely
goodness.
up there for sure.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Johnston was also a phenomenally gifted athlete
Mackenzie
in terms
Johnson
of
and
physical,
Sophia Stiles.
physical conditioning.
But Reagan
Regan
Skank is Northern Arizona guard man.
Ashley Bolston.
Oh, buddy. Regan Skank is the answer.
Yeah, Ashley
No
Bolston.
one can
Run
get
for days.
No one can get end to end like her. And yeah, no, I think she's the answer.
She's John Wall.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, she lifts Olympic weights as well.
Yeah.
Best shooter.
Taylor Pierce.
Taylor Pierce.
Best handles.
Moran's up there.
Jelani Welsh Coleman.
Jayamoni Welsh Coleman.
Jayamoni Welsh Coleman.
Jayamoni Welsh Coleman.
She was
Weber
also,
State point
who's
guard.
also one
5
of the
feet
most
tall.
unforgettable. Tiny.
4'11".
Tiny.
Yeah.
Headband, armbands, like talk about things.
Knee pads, Allen Iverson,
if
baby.
Desiree Hanson thinks she's Stephon Marbury, then Welch Coleman thinks she's Allen Iverson for sure. But she was like reminiscent of AI. I mean, she's obviously not 30 points per game, but like
Same deal where she's just smaller than everybody else on the court.
just
cooking
tiny
people.
Tiny, yeah. She was really fun. She was definitely a really good ball handler. Hannah Cottle was a very good ball handler, as well as Montana State's point guard.
Most memorable game.
Oh man. Well, that first year of Reno, nobody knew how it was going to go. Nobody knew how the neutral site was going to be. And the very first day of the tournament was in this like Reno back alley gym, and there was literally nobody there because nobody had done it yet.
Oh, I was there.
We were there.
Circus.
All 4 games came down to buzzer beaters. Juliet Jones hits a 3-quarter court to beat Montana State. Weber and Idaho go to double overtime, and Idaho ends up winning. Remember this one? Mm-hmm. Sailor Grandin's buzzer beater, and then I'm trying to remember the 4th one, but that was the most memorable day of women's basketball, certainly.
I'd have to think. I mean, we talked about the Sac State, Montana State, 118, 114. That was quite memorable.
That was a regular season one.
Definitely.
Montana State and Idaho State has had some incredible knockdown dragouts as well. When Montana State had won, I believe, 7 in a row and like something like 10 out of 12 in the rivalry against Montana.
Yeah.
And Shannon Schwain was something like 0-6 or 0-7 against Montana State. And it was like, what's happening? Because Lady Grizz had like never gotten swept by the Cats, and then they were on the brink of getting swept for the 4th year in a row. And then the Lady Grizz just erupted for 94 points, and the Cats couldn't make a shot in Missoula. That was one of the most shocking games I could remember.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the first one. I'll never forget Jesse McDowell White throwing the ball off Savannah Smith's bag in
totally.
Boise.
Portland State beating Idaho to just completely
Same day.
break that bracket. That was a pretty
crazy day.
pretty memorable day.
Sure.
Peyton Ferris cutting down the nets in Reno was a really good one.
We could go on forever.
I mean, probably the most shocking true result was not that Idaho State beat Idaho, but that Idaho State doubled up Idaho in the
They beat them by 30
championship.
in the first half. And,
Yeah.
That was amazing.
But that game was just over at halftime, and then it just kept swelling. At one point, they had twice as many points as Idaho did in the second half. It's crazy.
Last one for you. A little bit of an unorthodox question here, but looking forward, somebody who's playing right now who's definitely going to be on that top 10 list when we do this again in 10 years.
Definitely on the top 10 list.
Definitely on the top 10 list. Huh?
Your best guess. Or if we expand it out and do a top 20.
Sophie Glancy's got to be.
If she doesn't leave.
She's the fast riser for sure. I mean, she's the only underclassman first team all league player. I mean, Matt Koenig has upward trajectory, but she's a good player, but she needs to take some huge strides to be like an all-time great player. But she certainly has sort of the baseline credentials early on in her career.
I'll tell you one thing, Danny Bartz is going to be on the Skyline Sports All-Stars in 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
she for sure will be.
That's a good one. I mean, Montana State has so many young players. It's just a matter of who's the one that like reaches up and seizes the brass ring. I have no idea what to make of Idaho with all their tumult. Getting rid of Newley and then Carrie Amy leaves them at the altar without a contract and all this sort of stuff. I have no idea what's going to happen with them. Idaho State, like you just never know until you know.
And Eastern Washington's got nobody left from that team.
Right, and they didn't really play any young girls last year. So it's a huge point of transition there. I really like the young point guard at Northern Arizona. She's going to have Taylor Feldman.
Feldman.
She's going to have elevated because they really want her to be the next Skank.
she's not that young anymore. She's going to.
She's
gonna
a junior,
be a junior,
right?
yeah.
That's the issue. Is like when you have Skank and you just throw her to the wolves as a freshman. Now Feldman's just been backing her up for 2 years. So
I think the unique part about this question lends itself to the fact of what this last 10 years was like, because every single player in our top 10 was an absolute star as a freshman.
that's right, and stayed,
Yeah.
and stayed.
Every single one of them
or transferred into the league.
every one of them was a top 10 or top 15 player in the league
right away.
day one.
Correct.
And that isn't the case
Except
right
for
now.
Peyton Ferris, and that's why that story is so great.
Sure, I think you could
But she was still
argue
good. I mean,
the
she
talent was
she,
there.
Oh, she still played and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I think that's a question that obviously is meant for us to wait and find out.
Okay, one other gal that we have to mention for no other reason than I just thought that she had the most unique attitude in the league to go with a completely unorthodox game. Emma Torbert at Weber State.
I love
she
her.
She came in late. She left early. She didn't give a care the entire time. But man, like a couple of the like step back, stare you down, fadeaway threes, especially when you're like 6'2" and massive, is pretty funny to watch.
Hey man, there's one thing that you have a choice in life. It's what your attitude is. That sister has attitude.
No doubt. SkylineSportsMT.com. Happy 10th anniversary to us. Appreciate Cash One Pawn, the premier pawn shop in Western Montana. Up Top Clothing, a legendary brand helping present legendary athletes all summer long. Visit teamuptop.com. And Town Pump, Montana's best for more than 6 decades. Are we on to men's basketball now? Is that what's next? Do we have any more women's stuff coming up?
I mean, we've covered a fair amount of the league in women's basketball. I mean, there's
If you
more
wanted
we
to know
could
the
talk
top
about.
500 players in Big Sky the last 10
we
years,
get
here
you
we
covered
are.
with that.
We should just print the list.
We like women's basketball. I think that's the name of the pod.
I think we are done. We're moving on to men's basketball for July.
Stay tuned. We'll have some content. It is, as we record this, July 2nd, so we're going to take the long weekend off. We'll have some more stuff coming up next week. I'm probably going to put a cap on women's with some photo galleries and some reprintings of some of our favorite stories. And then we'll dive in probably around middle of July to men's basketball. That'll take us into early August. And then second week of August, we'll be rolling into football all the way downhill to get you into the 2024 football season. Anything else to add, gentlemen?
Thanks for doing this, guys.
Love it.
Love it. SkylineSportsMT.com. Skyline Sports every day, every season. See you next time.